There was a king who was very famous. He resided in a land which possessed no river. The king and his wife will have to go down miles to find a spring just to make use of the water they will need for the day. The king had a daughter of whom he was very fond and looked after her most carefully, and she grew up into a beautiful woman. For some time, the king was absent from his kingdom and had not been to the spring for years. When he went to his old place to wash, he discovered a tree had grown up all around the place, and it was impossible for him to use the spring as he had done formerly. He then ordered his strongest men in the kingdom to bring their knives, axes, machetes, and cut down the tree. They started to chop off the tree, but something strange happened. As soon as their machetes met the tree, it closed up as if nothing had happened. They kept trying for several hours, but had made no impression upon the tree. When they returned at night, they told the king that they had been unable to destroy the tree. He was very angry when he heard this. He went to the spring the following morning, and when the possessed tree saw the king approaching, it became terrified, and as soon as the king struck, it caused a splinter of wood to cause damage into the king's eye. It caused the king great pain that he threw down his ox and went back home. The pain, however, got worse, and the king could not sleep or eat for 3 days. He called upon sorcerers, sages, witches, and wizards, and ordered them to cast lots to find out why he was in such pain. When they had done so, they decided that the reason why was because the king wanted to wash at the spring and also attempted to cut down the tree. They then told the king to offer sacrifices of various items in order to satisfy the spirits living in the tree. The king did as he was instructed, and the witches, sorcerers, and wizards applied their lotions of magic upon his eye. But it only got worse by the day. He dismissed these witches and got another lot. When they arrived, they told the king, although they could not do anything to relieve his pain, they knew one man who lived in the spirit land who could cure him. So the king told them to send for him at once, and he arrived the next day. When the man from the land of the spirit arrived, he asked the king, "Before I do anything to your eye, what do I get in return?" The king said, "I will give you half my kingdom, half my town with the people in it, also 7 cows, and as much money as you please." But the spirit man refused to accept the king's offer, as the king was in much pain. He said, "Name your price, and I will pay you." Upon hearing this, the spirit man said, "I want but only one thing. There is something you cherish more than anything in the world. Give me your daughter, and I will cure your eye." When the king heard this, he cried very much and told the man to go away, as he would rather die than let him have his daughter. That night, the pain was worse than ever, and some of his subjects pleaded with the king to send for the spirit man again and give him his daughter, and told him that if he got well, he could have another daughter, but if he perishes, he will lose everything. And so the king summoned the spirit man again, who came very quickly, and in great grief, the king handed his daughter to the spirit. And immediately, the spirit man left for the forest, collected some leaves, which he soaked in water, poured the juice into the king's eye, and told him, "In the morning, wash your face, and you shall see what troubles your eye." The king tried to persuade him to stay the night, but the man refused and departed that same night for the spirit land, taking the king's daughter with him. Before the break of dawn, the king arose and washed his face, and found a small splinter from the possessed tree, which had been troubling him for days. It dropped out of his eye, and the pain disappeared. He was well again. When the king came to his senses, He realized he had sacrificed his daughter for one of his eyes. So he ordered for a general mourning across the entire kingdom for 3 years. The king's daughter was placed in a house by the spirit man and was given food. But there was a bird who was in that house who told her not to eat what she was given, for she's been fattened up, not for marriage, but to be devoured. Upon hearing this, she gave the bird the food and lived on water and chalk. Towards the end of the 3rd year, the spirit man brought his friends to see the king's daughter and told them the plans he has for her, and the mighty feast which they shall partake in. They all laughed. The bird, upon hearing this, quickly rushed to inform the king's daughter of the plans the spirit man has for her. "You must return to your father as soon as possible," the bird said. He provided her with medication to strengthen her for the journey ahead. He then gave her directions, telling her there are 2 roads, but when she came to the parting of the ways, she was to drop some of the medicine on the ground, and 2 roads will become 1. "Leave by the back door and go through the wood until you arrive at the end of the town. You will find the road there," he said. "Do not greet anyone you see by the roadside. Walk past them as if they do not exist, for if you do, they shall know you are a stranger in the land of the dead, and you shall be one of them." She was also instructed not to turn around if anyone called upon her name, but was to go straight until she reached her father's house. Having thanked the bird for its immense help, she set off on her journey, and when she reached the end of the town and found a road, she ran for hours, and at last arrived at the branched roads. She then dropped the medicine as she had been instructed, and the 2 roads immediately became 1. So she went straight on and never saluted anyone or turned back, even though several people called upon her name. About this time, the spirit man had returned from the woods and went to the house, only to find the king's daughter missing. He asked, "Where is she?" The bird said she left through the back door, but he has no idea where she ventured to. He immediately realized she has escaped, and so he went after her, shouting her name. When the girl heard his voice, shivers ran through her spine. He must be here at any moment now, she thought, but she never stopped running. Alas, she could see her father's house from a distance. Upon arrival, she asked her father, "Please, take at once a cow, a pig, a sheep, a goat, a dog, a chicken, and 7 eggs, and cut them into 7 parts as sacrifice, and lay them on the road, so when the spirit man saw these things, he would stop and not enter the house." This the king did immediately, and so they waited. At this point, the spirit man's voice grew louder and louder in her head, and as he approached, he stumbled upon the sacrifice which was prepared and laid on the floor for him. So he sat down and at once began to feast. While he had had his fill, he packed up the remainder and returned to the spirit land, not troubling anymore about the king's daughter. And when the king saw that danger was over, he beat his drum and declared that for the future, when people died and went to the spirit land, they should not come back as spirits to cure the sick. The moral of the story is to not be so desperate to the point of losing something so valuable that can never be replaced. If you have more takeaways, drop them on the comment section below.